It's unbelievable. China, there's a genuine question on the China thing, you know, because it's obvious. You go, well, China, like, they're a terrible regime. Yeah, they make stuff and we buy it, but we don't like those kids over there. They're horrendous human rights abuses, goodness knows what else. But then you realise they're about to dominate the world. What do? Suck up to them, form a cosy relationship, or do we run for the hills? Candice Holdsworth, the writer and broadcaster, is with us looking at the big stories of the day. Let's move to this one then, Candice. Labour set to enable stealth tax hikes for millions of people. Let's have a little quick reminder of when Rachel Reeves announced that tax rises were a thing of Labour's past.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. We would extend the windfall tax on the profits that energy companies are making and use that to endow a national wealth fund, to invest in the low-carbon energy industries of the future, to preserve jobs and create new jobs, as well as energy independence and lower energy bills.
Now, here's the thing, Candice. If they go, despite the fact, you know, no new taxes, and we know that the taxes coming out of their ears at the moment in all sorts of ways, and other sort of fairly unsavoury areas, they've decided to remove money, like pensioners and farmers, as obvious examples. This plan is a sort of devolution revolution where they will sort of essentially merge councils and put mayors in place. They want more directly elected mayors, which means they can impose a mayoral precept on top of council tax in some of those areas. So that is another tax that's coming our way soon.
Yes. Yeah, she's been very insistent about this. Like, we're not going to have another budget like that again. Well, I hope so, for the good of the nation, that we never have a budget like that again. And it's already unraveling. I mean, we're seeing that employers are saying that they're going to have to put on hiring freezes, mortgage rates are going up as lenders sort of anticipate the inflationary aspect, the effects of this budget. Also, another point to be made about devolution, who's asking for this? I mean, this just seems to be what this Labour government is doing. They're going on ideological crusades for which there is no big demand. Yeah. You know, Labour could recover, possibly, you know, with their approval ratings being as terrible as they are, if they actually went after things that people were genuinely people genuinely wanted, which were popular, you know, like house building, for instance, or reforming the NHS, making it better to use. Those are things they want to do, and if they did them well, people would be happy. But who asked for these massive tax rises? Who's asking for devolution? Nobody.
Where does that come from? Because I don't even believe that... I don't believe Angela Rayner is, you know, has been walking around for years with this philosophical idea of devolved areas and merge. It didn't come from her. It's come from somewhere. Someone's gone, here's an option for you, probably a head civil servant somewhere, who said, look, you might want to try this. I don't know what they set to gain from it, other than the fact they might be able to sort of gerrymander areas to their advantage. I mean, that would be one suggestion, I suppose.
Yeah, look, I think it's Keir Starmer and Gordon Brown have been involved in all these devolution ideas. They've published papers on it. This is something that they're deeply interested in. I mean, Gordon Brown in particular. I think you're right about Angela Rayner. I mean, she comes from way more of a trade union background, you know, and you can sort of see that reflected in, you know, her skepticism over the environmental rules, which are impeding house building and things like that. You know, the trade unions are skeptical of these things. And in some ways, I prefer their thinking on the matter. I mean, you know, you see across the political spectrum, people are quite happy with what she's doing in terms of ripping up planning rules. That's much more attuned to the population. I mean, this devolution stuff, I mean, it's just abstract nonsense that no one's interested in. Yeah, spot on. And a final one here. Lucy Letby, her lawyers have demanded a fresh appeal after one of the key witnesses changed their mind over how some of the babies in this case had died. Let's remind ourselves of when the former nurse was sentenced.
Lucy Letby, on each of the 7 offences of murder and the 7 offences of attempted murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Because the seriousness of your offences is exceptionally high, I direct that the early release provisions do not apply. The order of the court, therefore, is a whole life order on each and every offence, and you will spend the rest of your life in prison.
A whole life order. This has become a really curious story, Candice, hasn't it? There's all sorts of, from journalists to the odd politician who are sort of agitating on this, saying that there's no real evidence on this. I'm slightly lost as to where this almost conspiracy theory, it seems, where it's all come. Not suggesting you don't look at new evidence, but this idea that the whole thing was a stitch up against her, I can't see anything that really points to that.
Well, it's fascinating the way a good defense lawyer will construct a case in defense of their client, and what they will say is, this witness was very pivotal in the conviction of Lucy Letby. We don't think this witness is reliable. Therefore, reconsider the conclusions you came to about the deaths of these babies. There's an excellent documentary. I'm making lots of recommendations for people this Christmas, but there's an excellent documentary on Netflix called The Staircase.
Oh, yes. That's really interesting.
It's so good. It basically pioneered the whole true crime genre, but in a very intelligent way. And that's also about a man who was accused of a terrible murder. And it was all about how his defense basically came up with the way, basically tried to get him off. And you become progressively more confused as you watch the documentary. You're sort of like, do it? Didn't he do it? Because, I mean, when looking at in so many cases, unless there was like video of it or a direct eyewitness, evidence is not unambiguous. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can interpret how something happened, and that's the role that, experts play in trials, I mean, they can go either way as well.
I always thought he did do it, by the way, in The Staircase. I from the word go, I thought this looks, but then there are episodes you watch and you think, hang on a sec, well, maybe he didn't. I mean, he did serve some time in jail, but he was ultimately found not guilty, wasn't he, in the end? But I think didn't he recently die, I think?
No, he's still alive.
He's still alive?
Yeah, it's the whole thing of beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, I was exactly the same. I started off, no, this guy's banged to rights, he did it. But then as it progresses, you sort of think, maybe, And that's, you're put in such a difficult position as a juror, to break through all that and trying to decide. I mean, it's amazed me with the Lucy Letby case just how divided people can be on it. Very credible, intelligent journalists I know, think that it was an unsafe conviction. And then I know on the other side who are like, no, absolutely, like, you're wrong. The evidence strongly points in the direction that she did do it.
Indeed. Well, listen, Candice, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for today. Candice Holdsworth responding to the big stories